All right, so we had last week's candle closing within the range of the previous week's candle, giving us the indication there is bearish sentiment on the market, right? So on the weekly, we've closed within the range of the previous week's candle, giving us a strong indication there's bearish sentiment on the market, right? And on the daily, we have this fresh supply which would push price down to close below Thursday's candles low, giving us this supply in control of price. So on the 4-hour, this is our current supply in control on the 4-hour, right? This demand has already been tested. This demand has already been tested. This demand has already been tested. So that leaves us with this fresh demand below, right? So I'm expecting initial bullishness on market open to correct back to this supply, and then we push to the downside to this target demand. So this is our current supply in control, and then our target will be this 4-hour demand. So next week on DXY, right? This week on DXY, right? I'm expecting on Monday, I'm expecting initial bullishness for a correction, and then we push down to this target demand. Now we had this bear flag, right? Expanding broadening wedge, right? Price broke out of the expanding broadening wedge, and then we are pushing back to the supply. So I'm expecting price to continue bearishness after the initial correction. All right, so this week on odd USD, I'm expecting bullishness on odd USD, right? So on the 4-hour, we realize we are stuck in a range, and we have equal lows liquidity building up, right? So I'm expecting initial bearishness by price to clear out this equal lows liquidity, and then we tap into this first 1-hour demand and then push to the upside. There's a lot of liquidity below these levels, which price is very much interested, right? So we make the initial push, just as I'm expecting DXY to make initial bullish correction and then switch bearish. Same for odd USD, initial bearish correction to the downside, and then we are going to switch bullish to the upside. So our targets will be either this first supply or this first supply. All right, so on Euro USD, on Monday, I'm expecting initial correction, bearish correction, and then we push to the upside. We realized on the daily, by just looking at these two candles, we had Friday's candle closing above Thursday's candles high, and this is our current demand in control of what price. So we realize there's bulls in control on the Euro USD. Now on the 4-hour, we realize we are also in a 4-hour supply, right? So there's struggle between demand and supply. Now we realize we had this bullish flag, price broke out of this descending channel, we came back, tested this demand, and then we made a push to the upside. So since I'm expecting initial bearishness on all the USD then before the bullishness, right? And also expecting initial bullishness on DXY before we continue bearish, I'm going to expect initial correction on the Euro USD, and then we switch bullish. Now since this supply has already been tested, this is going to be our target supply for price, right? Now that's where I'll start looking for bearish sentiment to short this market, right? So now on the 1-hour, realize this is our demand. We are currently reacting to this supply, right? So this is going to drive price to the downside, and only if we are to get a bullish shift, we will look for price to push up to this fresh supply. So on Euro USD, I'm expecting initial correction, bearishness, and then bullishness on Euro USD, right? All right, so last week price pushed back up to the supply that led to taking out the structures to tell us we are bearish, right? So we are back into the supply that led to the taking out of these lows, right? So we are expecting price to shift bearish, and since we are expecting Australian dollar to gain strength this week, we'll be looking to short Euro order. Now on the 4-hour, we realize we have liquidity above this week's, and then I'm expecting initial bullishness before we switch bearish to the downside. So on Euro order this week, I'm expecting bearishness on Euro order. I'll only start looking for bullish move if we start trading above this supply, right? If you start trading above this daily supply, have a sustained close above the supply, and they keep on creating new highs, that's when I start looking for bullish moves on the Eurusd. But till then we are still bearish, right? So on the 1 hour we realize this is our 1 hour supply, right? From this supply that we had on our 1 hour demand, right? From this demand that we had, price pushing up to the upside, right? So once we start trading below this demand, then we can start looking for selling opportunities to target these lows and these lows, right? So Euro all this week, I'm bearish. On USD CHF this week, we are at the bottom of this range, right? And at the bottom of a range, price bounces off to the upside. Now we are expecting initial bullishness from the dollar for a correction, and then we keep on selling. So I'm expecting price to react to this low, push up a bit, right? We have this fresh supply right here. If we get price testing this supply, and then we have a structural shift, we'll be pushing down, and then finally we'll be taking out these lows, and then this will be our target demand. So initial bullishness probably to this supply. If you get a structural shift, we'll look for sales down to this demand.